Cam Bynum will join us at about 5:15 or so, the Vikings safety. It's the first chance we've had to talk with him since the Vikings' most recent Thursday night loss, and it's our first chance to chat with Nacho Lieber since that game as well. And he joins us, brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, as we speak. We'll get to the game, the Vikings game. I do want to work backwards a little bit here and ask you, on the basis of a busy, eventful Sunday in the National Football Conference North, especially as it pertains to my Monsters of the Midway, the Chicago Bears, what do you think you, Nacho Lieber, know about this division that you didn't expect, that has surprised you a little bit based on your thinking going into the season?
Well, I guess, no, I know that Chicago did not win. Obviously, it was, it's what everybody's been talking about lately.
Yes.
I guess I didn't realize that their defense was going to, kind of keep them afloat for so long, and immediately as Caleb Williams still tries to sort of figure out how to be more consistent, which I think that there are some flashes there that show, and there's hopefulness for all the Bears fans that he's going to get more consistent. But I didn't think that they would be as tough of an out as they have been. And, I expected the Vikings to be pretty good. I don't think anybody expected us to be off to such a hot start. Now, obviously, we've kind of simmered down a little bit since then. Everything is kind of shaping out how we thought it was going to shape out. But I guess I didn't realize in the totality of the NFC just how strong this division was going to be. Yeah,
it does still look very good. And, if the Bears don't blow that last play, you're sitting there, with the worst record would be with 2 losses, right? That's what, because now the Bears have dropped to 4-3 after that game. Give me your experience being on the field in a Hail Mary situation. Are there any nightmares? Has it been relatively uneventful? Does anything stand out when it comes to the Ben Leber Hail Mary history at any level?
Well, it's only been a couple times. I can tell you that that the football seems to hang in the air for a really long time. When you're on the field and you're not part of the sort of the jump group at the back of the end zone, you feel sort of hopeless excitement when you're on the other side of it. And it just seems like there's a long time by the time it's released by the quarterback's hand and it finally comes to a conclusion. I mean, it seems like an eternity, but it's the most fun play. I mean, it's great. I mean, you saw I could watch the fan reactions like for hours, just watching everybody react to that play yesterday. So it's really fun. I enjoy it. I haven't been a part of a ton of them, but I can tell you, being on the field, it's like that ball is up there for a long time, and you get a lot of emotion go to your head at that moment.
Do you buy, it's easy to say this after the fact, but people do bring it up often. It's not new that they believe the one of the biggest mistakes that teams tend to make is we're going to rush 3 because we want 8 in coverage at various places because we're just playing the odds here. If we can clog it up with as many bodies as we can, it takes away from the likelihood of something even fluky happening. Because what I heard again yesterday, in fact, I think it was from Romo. His opinion is you rush with 5 no matter the circumstance, because part of what you do try to do is take away the comfort of the quarterback, the opportunity maybe to set and reset and really launch down the field. What do you think regarding the philosophy? What philosophy should sort of dictate what defenses do at a time like that?
Yeah, I would agree with Romo at that point. I mean, there's only 5 guys that can go out for a pass route. So you don't need a ton of guys in coverage, and the ball is going to be launched at or near the goal line. So how many bodies do you really need to knock down the pass? You only need a couple guys. You put, you're taller. I would definitely sub out some guys that are maybe just taller, that have good leaping ability, that have some range. And even if you're a backup safety, that just might be the good spot for you. And put you guys back there in center field and just knock the ball down. I would definitely bring a late rusher. I'd probably bring 4, a normal 4 rush, and then just sort of have a lurking linebacker, because that the quarterback is going to try to roll out, or they're going to try to buy some time somehow. So once he sort of declares himself outside the pocket, I would blitz that fifth guy. And I would definitely make sure that you get a sack or you force the quarterback into a much worse throw for a Hail Mary. So I like the philosophy of rushing at least 5 guys, too.
What's interesting you say that, because one of the things we talked about very early in the show is that the Bears, through much of that game, not surprisingly, given how effective a runner Daniels is, they used a linebacker to spy him a lot of the time. That's not unprecedented. You've, I'm sure, been in situations where you're familiar with that, depending on the versatility of a running quarterback. But I guess on this play, what surprised me about the spying was he never did the blitzing part. It was literally, all right, it's as if it's the third quarter, and I'm still worried about him rushing for 22 yards and a first down. I'm going as Daniels is running from one side to the other to gain more time and a little bit of space to throw it. That linebacker never blitzes. He's mirroring him. He's just going back and forth like, okay, I'm spying him like I'm supposed to, which, given that circumstance, did not make a lot of sense to me. But you're the linebacker. You're the defensive guy. Does that surprise you at all?
Yeah, it just seems like a little bit of lack of awareness by that linebacker. I guess as you're telling that, you kind of painting the picture. I didn't even realize that there was a spied linebacker that was just shadowing him. I mean, what are you waiting for? He took, 13 seconds to throw that football or something crazy?
Yes.
I would definitely be asking in the defensive meetings, like, hey, you, what are you waiting for? It's not like he's going to check it down. If he checks it down, who cares? We've got guys to rally up and make the tackle. So I don't know. That's a good question.
So as a teammate, do you think in your career that if there was a player on your team that as the play begins has his back to the field, is taunting fans in the stands for at least 4 or 5 seconds before he's made aware, I think in the crowd by Bears fans, that, hey, the play has started. You've got to defend at the goal line. Would you have condoned the injuring of said player when he came back to the locker room?
No, I definitely would have, there would have been a really hard side eye of like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
The thing is, even if he's taunting and all that stuff during the play, which is just wild that he's doing it during the play, he was still in good position.
Well, he ended up being there. Yeah.
The only thing he didn't do was he didn't time up the jump.
Right.
Properly.
Yep.
He was where he needed to be. He was there at the point of impact. He high points the football. He just does it a beat too late and doesn't knock the ball down. So, I mean, we can say everything that we want for having turd behavior, but he still had a chance to make the play. And then he doesn't look like this silly idiot the next day where it's what everybody around the NFL country is talking about is like, look at this guy. And then Guardsy told me, and I didn't even know this, that Orlovsky pointed out that he was doing it the play before, on the 12-yard sort of out route that they used to pick up extra yardage. He was taunting the crowd during that play too. So I don't know, man. He's kind of a loose cannon, I guess.
Yeah, he's a young player. I think he's actually got a chance to be a pretty good corner. But man, that's just you can't make that stuff up. All right, let's get to the purple, especially what happens at left tackle. So. We know it's a major loss. Darisaw is, a standout. If he's not the best, he's certainly one of the best. You're not going to replace him with anybody who's going to be able to play at that level. So how big a blow is this? What's realistic? Do you expect the Vikings to go outside the organization to find somebody who at least might give them another legitimate option? Are they better off, dealing with whatever they have within, including who they used after he went down? How tough a blow do you think this is moving forward?
Yeah, this is really tough. It's just hard to replace really good players, and you just don't have the depth that can match the type of player he is. And so, do you go out and try to find a starter? I don't think so. I would think that you would go out and find a high quality reserve guy. Whether it's somebody else's practice squad. I don't think they're going to necessarily. Waste a lot of draft equity, but if they can get somebody for some sort of compensation that they think can be there for as a swing guy, then I definitely think that you need to pull that trigger. Also, they could just handle it in-house. Blake Brandel has played fantastic at left guard. We've seen him at tackle. He's very valuable as a swing guy at guard tackle. Is it possible that he just kicks out to tackle And then we have Dalton Reisner, who now sounds like he's healthy and ready to go from a back injury. Does he just slide there as natural left guard spot and then kind of take care of that situation by getting, and then we don't have to worry about any sort of musical chairs with Ed Ingram at right guard. Maybe that's the play. I think Questenberry is serviceable. They are going to have to get a little bit more creative, I think, on certain passing downs, putting Josh Oliver over there. You might see a little more 12 personnel, having 2 tight ends in there, especially, if we get Hawkinson back and then he just becomes, that extra wide receiver, and then we kind of put Josh Oliver over there. It is going to change our blocking schemes a little bit. We're going to be definitely more aware, but I am interested to see what they're working on because I can see a scenario and situation where Brandel just kicks out and he just kind of takes over that tackle spot.
So if we look back one last time on the Rams game, you were obviously there. What stands out? I mean, what disappointed you the most about that outcome? What contributed, do you think, most notably to the Vikings losing their second game in a row?
The immediate lack of energy and discipline by our defense. I know that the Rams are a different offense when they get their 2 receivers back, and I have to give them a lot of credit using Puka Nacua. I did not realize how good Puka was. It's the first time for me seeing him with my own eyes, and I'm very impressed with just his stature, the way, how big and strong he is and all the other stuff. But, in the way they utilized him, a lot of quick throws to the outside. They really wanted to take away any sort of pass rush. But I thought that we lacked energy for the first couple of series, maybe a quarter and a half. You just didn't see the same, bounce in the defensive step. They didn't bring the energy that we've seen in the past. And then defensively, in the secondary, we had it looked like to me, a lot of undisciplined blown coverages and some confusion in the back end. We heard that a little bit, the week before, and it didn't seem like, a lot of it got fixed. Again, undisciplined with some of the penalties that we had in crucial situations. I just thought defensively we played sloppy, and it all looks correctable. And Dan, I'm talking about, it's not maybe the most obvious things, but there are several situations where we have had corners and safeties that would start with one leverage, whether it be inside or outside. And you can tell on film, like, okay, he's got outside leverage because he's got help here, he's got help here. And then for whatever reason, the receiver breaks that leverage and they throw the ball and they catch it. And it's like, well, if we would just trust the defense and funnel the guy into where the help is at, and you just make sure that if he's trying to get outside to break your leverage, you make it really, really hard for him. And we just constantly made sort of the same foolish mistakes when it came to just leverage and discipline. And that was really unfortunate. It didn't look like that they were doing anything complicated offensively, a couple motions here and there and all that stuff. But it seemed like all that stuff should be taken care of. So I don't know what was going on defensively, why we played so undisciplined.
Maybe you've answered the question I'm about to ask already with the answer you just gave, but the Colts are the opponent Sunday night. And Guardsy and I were just talking about this earlier in the broadcast, looking at a couple things regarding Anthony Richardson's day yesterday against Houston. Based on what you're laying out, would you say, or do you believe the Vikings are better served if Richardson is the quarterback as opposed to Joe Flacco? Because it strikes me that Flacco, as another veteran guy, is more likely to take advantage of some of those breakdowns than Richardson, who's been wildly erratic as a thrower. 44% of his pass attempts completed this year. He was 10 for 32 yesterday against Houston. So is that the best case scenario for the Vikings, that it's Richardson, even though he's got a lot of athleticism, hadn't really proven that much as a passing quarterback to this point? That's a better, or a more doable challenge for the Vikings defense based on their struggles than it is Flacco, who can still kind of fling the ball around.
Yeah, definitely. I think Flacco is the old savvy vet that obviously doesn't have the mobility that Richardson has, but he can throw receivers open, and that comes from experience, trust, confidence, all of that stuff. And right now when you watch Anthony Richardson, I don't think that he can do anything close to what Matthew Stafford can do. And what Stafford did was just trust his receivers are going to win in those situations. You got to look at it from the quarterback standpoint. when he sees a corner with outside leverage and he knows that his receiver is going to try to break that leverage, well, he's going to throw it to that spot, knowing that he's going to trust his receiver. I don't think a young quarterback, especially Anthony Richardson, is going to see that same coverage and think, do I throw it out there? I see color. Am I going to trust that he's going to cross that guy's face and win? Joe Flacco probably would, because he's seen it 1,000 times, and he can take all the other variables that he sees and knows that, like, okay, based on spacing, I'm going to trust that this guy can catch it and get it there, or I throw it to a spot where if I miss, it's not an interception, it's just an incomplete pass. And so I would much rather face the more athletic, bigger-armed Richardson, just because I don't think that he has that moxie and that knowledge to throw guys open and to be as accurate and tight coverage that Flacco can be.
Is it, again, as a former player and now a football analyst and observer, does it strike you as odd that he left the game? He basically has admitted afterwards that he was tired. He'd just apparently done some scrambling on some previous plays. He takes himself out of the game, not because he's hurt. This was late in the third quarter. Pretty rare, I think, pretty unusual given the importance of, the quarterback and what everything's sort of built around him. Or you think people are making too much of that particular issue because it's become a big issue in Indianapolis with the Colts?
No, I actually think it's a big issue. I mean, it seems kind of silly that people would be harping about it, but it says a lot about the person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're being paid a lot of money, and there's a lot of weight on your shoulders. And these games, even though there's 17 of them, they are very heavily weighted, and every snap counts. I mean, there's people's livelihoods based on this. And on top of that, it's like you want to set as much of a precedence to be a leader of this team, regardless of the situation. That's why so many guys in this league, it's a tough man's game, and you want to prove that. And I think that there's value in proving that. I mean, let's sort of contrast that with the way Brett Favre played. It's a different era, but I think the approach is still the same. I mean, Brett would go out there with his shoulder hanging off. He wouldn't care. He's like, I need to be out there for my guys. And especially when it's in Richardson's situation where, like, that's all under your control. It's not like you got hit, you tore a knee ligament and you're just going to, sit out and you're going to get your knee evaluated or whatever. You take a hard hit, get the wind knocked out of you, maybe you're out for a play or two. That's understandable. But being conditioned to play this game, that's a you problem. And that's not being a professional. And every quarterback that wants to be a leader of any one of these teams, you have to take it upon yourself, your own responsibility to get your body and your mind ready to go out there and lead these guys. And he flat out admitted that he was not conditioned to play in this game. I mean, you scramble a few times, you have to run around and create a little bit. Yeah, that's what you do. That was your skill set. That's what people loved about you. That's what you did in college. That's what you've been showing right now. So you're telling me that you need to take a break because you ran around too much? My goodness. I mean, you see guys puking on the field all the time. You see offensive centers puking on the football before the ball snapped because they're so tired. That's where you build respect. That's where you build toughness. That's where you can look to your guy to your left and right and be like, all right, this guy's going to go through it. I know that he's going to push himself. And, what a missed opportunity by the supposed leader of your football team. Ben Leber,
Nacho Leber, joining us thanks to the good folks at the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Speaking of Sierra Nevada, I should say, who is your hop splash player of the game from the Thursday night game?
It's tough in some of these losses, but there's always a lot of bright spots. And so my hop splash player of the game is Jonathan Grenard. Huh? I went back and watched a little bit more with a fine-tooth comb, just sort of the defensive issues that we had, which I kind of spoke about earlier. And I thought that he was very disruptive. And maybe, again, doesn't show up on the stat book, but the things that he was doing, the way that he was able to be disruptive in the run game, how he could, try to affect the quarterback on some of those quick throws. I thought he had the right mentality. And when you really watch his game back from last week, it was a really good game. So he's my player of the week. Yeah, that makes sense. And it speaks to, again, the one advantage you have if it's Flacco. We do know that he's never been a really mobile quarterback. And I haven't watched him lately, but I assume he doesn't move all that well. So you'd like to think
Grenard and others, they might be able to put some pressure on him in a way, obviously, where it might be a little bit more challenging with Anthony Richardson. There's always, there's the yin and the yang of it. Although I tend to agree with you. I think we've seen this the last couple of weeks that quarterbacks, neither of whom move all that well, although I thought Stafford moved better than I remember him moving, particularly on one play in particular. Still not guys who are, constantly moving around and are going to scramble off of pressure. That they're good at finding receivers. They're good at making quick decisions, and that's still more what Flacco is doing than we're seeing from Richardson, who had one home run play, I think, for a touchdown. So you always have that possibility with him, right? That he can fling at 60, and he can also probably run at 55. But over the course of a game, you're playing the percentages. I still think, you'd rather go with the guy who's more of a streaky player, very streaky at this point, not very accurate. Even though if it's the old timer, you may, if you're the coordinator, say, well, let's see, let's be creative on some ways to put some heat on him.
Yeah, and the thing is, going back to Flacco, and it's when you're playing a Brian Flores defense, it is a mental game. Yes, you are probably going to get hit, although we didn't hit Matthew Stafford very much. But by and large, again, you play the percentage game. Quarterback's going to take a lot of hits. They know that. So if you're tough-minded enough to know that, and then you just work on the mental part of it, you look at Brock Purdy, and he was like mentally exhausted from the game because he's like, there's just so much to look at and so much to decipher. But if there is, and I don't know if this is confirmed, but if there is sort of a book on our defense right now from what the Detroit Lions showed, and then the Rams did a little bit of the same thing, if you can block our 5 or 6 with your 5 or 6 and give the quarterback a little bit more time, well, guess what? A smart, experienced quarterback is going to know where those holes are in the defense. And that's why facing a guy like Joe Flacco, if they can block us up and give them a little bit more time, he knows where the vulnerabilities are in a defense where you're dropping 5 or 6 guys in coverage, which when you're playing a zone coverage, there was one time early in the game where we had 5 guys in coverage. It looked like some version of a 3 over, 2 under coverage. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, how can you ask the guys that are in the underneath coverage part cover so much ground and take away any sort of middle of the field, shot down the middle or anything out to the edges? It was like, if you do not get home and get to this quarterback, we're hanging out to dry. And Flacco, I think, can figure that out. Not sure I can say the same thing about Richardson. Give us your quick evaluation here in our final minutes about the sort of the state of our passing game at this point. Are we getting enough from other people besides JJ? Are you getting a little concerned about the passing game? What do you think of it right now? Well, it's interesting. It's interesting when this whole Addison, this free 3, came out. I certainly don't think I don't think he's asking for a trade. I think he's looking for more productivity and maybe just like, hey, maybe some of these primary reads should go to me and not Justin all the time. That's kind of what I'm taking it as. But you look at his play specifically, and I'm gonna err on the side of the quarterback most of the time making the smarter and the right decision. But we've seen a few of the targets go to him, and the ball falls short because he's expecting to be in a spot. It seems like to me maybe Jordan Addison's maybe just not running outs. He's not putting himself in a position to be productive. And so, yeah, there seems to be, as I talk about miscommunication and just like undisciplined things in the back end of our defense, maybe a little bit of that is going on with Jordan Addison, which is thus affecting the passing game. And maybe they're not going to him because they don't trust him. So
you better take that call. It could be a KOC call and need looking for some help. Oh,
that's
is that
our
us?
call.
Oh, we're calling. Oh, okay. Well, I don't understand how that's happening, but we'll we're at the time anyway where you got other things to do. And we do as well. So have a wonderful time Sunday night calling and analyzing the Sunday night game. Now we're a national TV game on Sunday, and we'll chat next week.
All right. Sounds great.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
That is Nacho Lieber via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Sierra Nevada Brewing Company is responsible for bringing him to you. So when you say that's our guy,
Cam Bynum's calling, so we got to go.
Got to go. All right, well, let's get a quick grand in your hand in.
2 man in the junk truck. Want to do that? Keyword, final one today is Bills, KFAN.com, keyword Bills.
Cam Bynum is indeed kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. First chance we've had to catch up since the Thursday night game in his hometown, Los Angeles, California. And Cam joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Cam, how are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Right back to work. Had a good little mini bye.
Nice.
Got to reflect on the game and everything and get ready to get right back to work.
I do have a couple questions regarding the game and some of the concerns that many of you members of the defense expressed afterwards. And maybe this falls under the classification of we got enough stuff to worry about. But I have to ask you as a defensive back, if you were watching that or have seen, at least since, the Hail Mary play, the dramatic finish to the Washington-Chicago game, and if, as a defensive back, you have any empathy for what ends up happening to the Chicago Bears on that play.
Yeah, you just have to know, like, when in those situations, that is not a playoff, and that's still a play you still have to make on the back end, because if you have a mobile quarterback like that, you have to expect that the ball will make it down there. So it's always really important to be locked in on that play and especially take care of the tip ball guy that's going to be standing in the back of the pile and make it happen. So for sure, I wouldn't even say I empathize with them, but I'd just say you just have to stay locked in till the game is over. So that's something you have to know that's a very possible play to make.
No question. As you said, with a mobile quarterback who was given time to launch it. And I guess the cardinal rule for you guys, I assume, is there can't be every receiver potentially who can grab that ball for the other team. We got to have somebody behind him. He can't be behind us. Is that correct?
Yes, every eligible down there has to be boxed out. So our responsibility, body has to be on a body, and you also have to have a back tip guy, so somebody that's standing for the tip on the back of the pile, and then somebody that's on the front side if the ball gets batted forward. So that's really the mindset, and that's worldwide. That's a universal rule in that situation, but it's easy to say until you're in that situation and you start losing track of guys because you're staring at the ball in the air. So you really just have to know, okay, I have to be next to my guy and make sure my specific guy doesn't catch it and leave the tip ball to somebody else.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it sounds good and it's all logical, but it keeps happening, right? It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. We talked about some famous Hail Marys going back for decades. We do see whatever the best intentions are of a defense. You get in that situation, you get off balance, you get a little confused. That was the cleanest one I've seen because, just a couple weeks before, Rodgers completed one for the Jets at the end of the half, but it was like everybody was going up for it, and it was just a great catch in that case. I think it was Lazard made the catch in that situation. What made this one unusual was how clean and easy it was for the Washington receiver on the back end.
Yeah, he caught it and walked away, and that was crazy, and that's what made it such a surprise that he kind of got leaked out of the back of the jumping pile. But like I said, it's so easy to lose track of people when you're in the heat of the moment. And human nature saying the game is over, the percentage of getting a Hail Mary is super low. So knowing that situation, it's like, okay, how much more locked in can I be for one more play? And that's something you practice every single week, every Friday. Every Saturday walkthrough, we practice and go over that, but it's rare that you actually get to do a full speed rep of that in a game. So you just have to take that preparation and make it real life.
I trust you would tell me that there's not much of a chance that you would be taunting the crowd with your back to the play as the play begins. I can't get over that, man. It absolutely astounds me that could happen in real time, and that's because that's exactly now. Again, the player involved ended up getting back into play, knocking the ball. But I get it. You guys, players are emotional. It's an emotional game, and that was an emotional game. A great comeback by the Bears. But how stunning was that for you to see?
Yeah, I didn't even know it happened until I watched the highlights after the game because I wasn't able to watch the game live. So I was watching Game Day Final, and, you know, they highlighted it and showed the tweet after the game. But like I said, it just goes to show that in the NFL, the game is never over until the clock is literally at zero and the whistle blown and the game is done. So that's just one of those things where you just can't let the heat of the moment, the being with the away crowd and you're up and you lose focus. So, like we saw that it can happen and it can happen to anybody, but that's just one of those things about being out there on that field. You can never let the moment be too much to get you out of your focus. So that's one thing that for sure it'll be in the film room in one of our meetings this week of us stressing the Hail Mary play now, because we're just glad that it happened to somebody other than ourselves, and it's always going to be a learning lesson for the whole league from now moving forward.
Over the years, any level you played at, have you had any rough Hail Mary experiences?
No, I've had a good one. In high school, I picked one off, and I got yelled at because I didn't knock the ball down. So ever since then, I was like, I wanted the free stat, coach, but they said, no, knock it down. You never know it can happen. But since then, I just realized, the situation is always more important than your personal stats. But high school, I was on the positive side of one, but thankfully never on the negative side of one of those.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your club now and your defense. And you guys have had, I know, some time to sort of figure this out, because I sensed the comments from many of you on the defense post-game that this isn't where you were as a defense. This isn't where you want to be, obviously. So from your standpoint, once you guys have tried to, maybe break some things down, or even just individually, what you have reflected on and what you have looked at, what stands out to you about what you guys as a defensive unit, especially against the pass, aren't doing now that you seem to be doing earlier in the season?
I would just say, as cliche as it is, execution. Going through the film and having these few days off to really go back and watch the game and watching other games also. You go back and you compare the early games with the games now, and you just see the focus in the tiny little details that are easy to focus on when you're fresh out of training camp and it's the first game. So, all the little details are fresh on your mind. And you get into Game 7 now and you realize, okay, this is the same play call that we did in week 1, week 2, week 3 that we played really well. But doing the same thing in week 7, we realized that, okay, the details weren't as crispy as they normally were. And it's not even like a big world-changing difference. It's something as small as leverage or something as small on my end, being deep enough in cover 2 and being able to play multiple routes in the deep part of the field. And little small things like that were easy, like obvious things in week 2. And you go through a bunch of games having success and the little details start to slip because you're playing well and you're still making plays, and human nature sets in where you start thinking, okay, it's good enough. But now that we had these 2 losses, we're really looking at ourselves even with a more critical eye than we already were. So we've already been super locked in on everything and making sure to correct things, even with the wins. But now we even have a closer eye on the little small details. So it's kind of, I'd say it's exciting to learn. Obviously, we hate the fact that it took losses to be able to see that, but it's an exciting thing moving forward that we fix a few mistakes. Sky's the limit for us.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned cliches. I mean, to me, this is a league of adjustments where one team using a certain approach maybe is effective with it. People start studying it and they go, okay, well, where might there be a little bit of weakness there? So we're going to try A, B, and C to see if that can get them a little bit out of their game. And that then on the other end of it, it's okay, well, now you guys are in the mode where you have to adjust to their adjustments. Now you're telling me you think a lot of it is execution, but it certainly looks to me like part of it is teams have figured out, all right, we're going to get rid of the ball quicker. We're going to try to do more of that if we have people who can do something with it after they make the catch to try to negate some of the pressure at the line of scrimmage. Does that change anything about the way you go about your business?
Yeah, just knowing, really a lot of the game plan is knowing how teams will attack us. And one thing Coach Flo mentioned before the game this week, that really the days of us getting free blitzers and free runners to go smack the quarterback, those days are gone. We've had way too much success sending the pressures and getting easy sacks, and people are going to eventually stop letting their quarterbacks get hit by Harry coming off the edge or Ivan Pace coming through the middle and getting a free hitter on the quarterback. So those days are done. So it's really knowing how teams are going to combat the things that we do. And like you said, getting the ball out quick to the perimeter and us having to understand that and not overrun the ball that's going to the perimeter, or being stronger on blocks to set the edges on the outside when they do hit the perimeter. And just really knowing like where teams are trying to attack us and understanding that and realizing that we have to adjust through the season, because the more good stuff we put on film, the more answers we give to other teams of or the more scenarios that teams have to try and do things to combat the good things that we're doing. And especially having these 2 games where we haven't played well and we've lost the games. Now teams think they see holes in our defense, so it's our job to adjust off of those things.
Viking safety Cam Bynum, our guest. Do you ever get to blitz in this defense?
For me, in my role, yes, I do, but knowing the type of players that we have, as far as having Metellus down there, having Harry that's been a blitzer his whole career, division of labor, where my history and where I'm most comfortable, obviously, is in the field as a cover guy and tackling in space. So really we understand on our defense that, yes, we're all versatile, but some guys do different things better. And for me, my role, I'm obviously better in space. For me, as the cover safety and the guy to the field. So we have it, but for sure I'm not the lead blitzer in this defense at all. Sunday
night, of course, you guys are going to be hosting the Colts, and this is, I think, an example of just how contrasting it can be at the quarterback position. The assumption is Anthony Richardson is going to start. I don't know if the coach is committed to that yet or not. Obviously, they've used, when he was out hurt, Joe Flacco. And man, oh man, I would think this is a week where, depending on who goes, there is a lot of different kind of prep you have to do. These are 2 completely different quarterbacks. Richardson has been wildly inaccurate, 44% for the season. He was 10 for 32. But obviously a great athlete, can make some home run plays at any moment, but hasn't been very consistent as a thrower. Flacco strikes me as one of those guys who he's pretty good at probing weaknesses, even though his mobility is nowhere near what Richardson is. There's a big contrast in quarterback styles here, is there not?
Yeah, for sure. Just especially when you talk about Flacco, just being the vet that he is, being here for over obviously 10 plus, way more than 10 years. So he's seen everything. And he's more of a pocket passer and somebody that can dice you up because he's seen every type of defense that's in football with his experience. Then you talk about the other quarterback being physically gifted and somebody that has super athletic ability, super strong arm, and can make any throw on the field, and more mobile. So it's really a tale of 2 different teams and different offenses when each of the guys are in. So it's really just a game of understanding what the coordinator likes to do in each of those situations when you have Flacco in or when you have Richardson in there. So obviously it's going to be way more film we have to watch, and especially given the long weekend we've had, we'll be ready for that, knowing that whoever's in will be ready. But it's for sure 2 different types of offenses when each guy is in.
You strike me as a pretty even keel player, even though you certainly like to have your fun. But are you a guy who relishes the primetime games? The Sunday night game is really probably these days considered the premier primetime game. Does that mean something extra to you? Do you say, yeah, that's nice, it's fine? I mean, but it doesn't matter exactly what time we play. How do you react to the primetime kind of event?
Yeah, it doesn't matter really at all. It's still going to be football. It's still going to be a big-time game. And for me, I enjoy it because obviously it's an opportunity to put your team on the map knowing that you're the only game on at night. So all the external stuff is cool because I feel like that's even better when you ball out, and when we ball out as a team, more people get to see it. But all that's just a plus, and that's superficial. Because when you really look into it, the process is going to be exactly the same. The way we practice is going to be exactly the same, and the only difference is going to be the time we play on Sunday. But like I said, the superficial stuff is cool that all your family, friends get to watch it. For me in the Philippines, everybody will be awake by then, so it'll be a morning game for them, so they'll actually be able to watch it. So it's always a positive thing for me when we get to have these primetime games, just because I see it as an opportunity to put on a show.
Last item for you this week, you mentioned B-Flow, and I'm curious because it can go two ways, I think, for a coach at a time like this. Obviously, you guys are in great position. It's not like all is lost by any means. On the other hand, the last two games you have lost. The defense has not been quite as effective as it had been earlier. I mean, you guys are giving up 15 points a game, and suddenly you're giving up almost double that. So a coach can go two ways in that situation. He can be tough, and he can say, hey, look, we're not doing this, and this. Let's get on it. Or it can be, we're not panicking here. We know what we can do well. We're going to go back and shore some things up. What's the B-Flow approach been?
Yeah, I think the approach that we own up to our mistakes, we take accountability from a player standpoint and a coaching standpoint. And I don't see any panic out of him at all, but for sure I see an urgency to get things right. And I think we've set ourselves up to have a high standard, to be mad about having two losses. And he talks about seeking comfort a lot, and that we have to be uncomfortable to be able to grow. And that's like his main message. And he's been saying that through the success that we've had when we were 5-0. And it's the same message after losing two straight. We have to be at our best when things are uncomfortable. And right now, this is the most uncomfortable we can be, losing two games that we had in our hands and that we knew were winnable games for us, and especially on defense, us not doing our part. This is the most uncomfortable we can be. So he's like, this is the best time for us to really look at ourselves and see if we can be great. And he said we can either get past this and be positive out of it, or we can fold under the pressure and fold under the discomfort. And that means we're not built for this. But every single person in the room knows that we're built for this discomfort, and we're inviting the discomfort to really be able to bounce back in a way where we know we can and we know we will. So he's really excited about it, this opportunity that we have to bounce back and show who we can be, especially as a defense.
I appreciate the conversation as always. Good luck on Sunday night, and we will chat next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Talk to you then.
Thank you, man. That is Vikings safety Cam Bynum on a number of fronts as we look back to the Thursday night game. First chance we've had to chat with him since that loss and to get his views on what took place in the nation's capital yesterday. Kind of a combination of both of those things. I have not looked for odds, Guardsy. I'm going to say the Vikings are favored over the Colts by 4.5.
Hit continue. Are you sure you want to visit this site? Yes, I am.
Is it like pornographic? Is that the concern?
No, but it's gambling.
So yeah, you got.
So they always give you the firewall there.
Right.
What did you say?
I said 4.5.
DraftKings has the Vikings installed as a 6-point favorite right now.
I'm way too low. Well, not way too low, but
1.5 though.
1.5. Yeah, interesting. 4.
I wonder who they think is playing quarterback.
Well, that's it. That's a good question. What does that indicate? Does that tell us something about who they think is going to play the position? By the way, we have an update. We might as well go long here since we're...
Yeah, we can go to 42.
Yeah, we'll go to 42. Seiferd's got a story up. Maybe Gessling does too. I don't know. Regarding Jordan Addison. Claiming, that there's nothing to any of this. Apparently, the story I saw is all apocryphal about the
I was trying to find that. Because I saw Seiferd's.
I found it somewhere, but it sounds like it might have been Larry Mondello guy who said it, so it might not be truthful. But I'm here to tell you that
timing is everything.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I Jordan Addison maybe learning, and he's young, the whole bit, but I'm really not all that interested in giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's almost like exasperated by all of this, that this has been his brand forever, which makes me want to puke anyway. We're in this world of brands before anybody's accomplished anything. But beyond that, why now? Why is he throwing it out there now? It may be innocent as hell, but he's a guy who hasn't been truthful in the past, who has gotten himself in some difficulty before, still might be facing some measure of suspension. We don't know. So I'm sorry if I'm not quite willing to accept his lecture that people are looking for stuff too hard and they really need to do their homework. I would say he needs to do a little bit more homework on the way this works, and the idea that he's acting surprised that in 2024 people might make these assumptions that, well, what's up here exactly? Because it hasn't gone that well for him. And there are people around the team who say there's some legitimate questions about some of the patterns he's run. Sorry, he doesn't have enough equity for me to necessarily want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying cut him, but no. It's just the whole thing's getting a little silly.
Well, he doesn't need to go with the people are looking for stories.
Right.
Because if it has gone back to Pittsburgh 2020, which he says it has, that's great, but not everybody's following that all the time. We're not all locked in on the Jordan Addison brand. I don't think you're wearing a free 3 hoodie right now. I don't think you just ordered one to go with your Indiana one.
I might. Maybe I should.
Maybe you should, but it's pretty easy to just go, no, that's just what I've always done. No big deal.
Yeah.
But it's also, you have to know. You're saying free 3 for a reason. Even when you started it as your brand, I would imagine it's about getting you the ball.
Yes.
Right? At the beginning of this whole process. So
if you pick this weekend to throw it out there again,
right,
you're going to be surprised that people might go, what's this all about? And by the way, I don't think anybody's turned it into World War III. No. I didn't even mention it on yesterday's show.
I didn't even really know about it.
It wasn't like I was chomping at the bit. I got a 2-hour show. We're going to spend the whole time on it. I didn't even mention it. But we had extra time today. I said, okay, what exactly is going on with this thing? And so I think it was comic relief guy who basically was pretending that he had talked to him about the idea that it was related to our very good, underpaid, I might add, kicker.
Oh, is he already underpaid?
Well,
is he gonna hold out?
No, I don't.
6th-round pick?
That would be a story if he starts issuing some ultimatums online.
Sam Darnold, I think, wants to tweet out free 3, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. Free 3 away from the Justin Jefferson routes on 3rd and 7 when I'm trying to get it to JJ and Addison's in the wrong spot. But I think that's happened a couple times. I think we need a free 3 away from JJ when we're trying to get the best receiver in football the ball in a critical spot.
I like what 612 guy wrote. His brand is that he was the guy who drove 180 miles per hour for a fictional dog. That's the truth.
Enough said?
Enough said. Let's do this. Let's get a pause in now. I've got a couple of elections right on the corner. I've got a couple of A-section subjects I want to at least explore briefly, and then we'll finish with some more toy department stuff. Monday Night Football tonight on the Fan, is that correct?
Giants Steelers, right?
Yeah. There's your guy, Daniel Jones. Big smile on his face. He's chatting with
Troy and Joe.
Troy and Joe Buck right now, and it looks loosey-goosey, doesn't it? It looks really loose.
He's ready.
Looks like a good...
Daniel Jones is ready.
You think tonight's the night?
Not really.
And Russell Wilson is, I assume, starting again for Pittsburgh.
Looks like it.
And their plan of going to with 2 quarterbacks, I think that's out because who's the other guy?
Justin Fields.
Bear. He's, I think, got some kind of hammy injury. The plan, I think, was to try to bring him in on maybe some running plays. But I believe, last I saw, he might be a little bit too hobbled to do that. So it's not as sexy as Colts Vikings on Sunday night coming up.
Speaking of quarterback controversy.
Yeah, very true. I wonder if they have second thoughts about that. But they didn't know we were going to lose our second in a row, right?
No.
And do you know what game that they flexed out of? What got axed for
I don't.
us?
Maybe during this break I'll try to find it.
We'll try to find out. We'll prepare you for that information and for much more outside the toy department next. Colts Vikings is replacing Jags Eagles. So I guess you'd say it's mildly better. I mean, you got one
I don't know.
Good team, the Eagles. But they just had a big dominant victory finally. They've been kind of meandering up until now. Jaguars are a mess. That much is...
almost stole one yesterday.
Although they did almost steal one yesterday. That's true. So I
too much time for Malik Willis. That's what they left.
Well...
They scored too fast.
Who knew?
You can't give Malik Willis time.
Apparently you can't. I'd say that, to be honest, I think that's a push. Now, they didn't know the Vikings were going to lose their second in a row, but I guess it shows you that they didn't have a lot of great options, because Sunday night game is supposed to be the premier game of all of them. I tweeted some stuff or retweeted some stuff this weekend regarding an A-section story that's getting a lot of attention nationwide as we get ever closer to Election Day. Decision
1 week from
day,
tomorrow.
2024. And that is that a couple of major national newspapers, although the Washington Post is much more national newspaper than the Los Angeles Times at this point, have decided to not endorse. They are not weighing in on the presidential race, for example. And the reaction has been extremely swift, largely from people who are assuming they were going to endorse Harris Walz and are bitter that they did not do so. I don't know who McKay Coppins is, but I like the way this individual put it. One, the Washington Post decision not to endorse is pretty clearly motivated by craven business/access concerns, not any kind of editorial principle, which is a bad sign. And two, it will almost certainly make no difference in the outcome of this election. I tend to agree with both of those points. I think they both can be true at the same time. I will also add that I believe the tradition of newspapers endorsing, as somebody who grew up in newspapers, might be a little bit overrated. I have no problem with newspaper editorial boards and sections doing it, but I'm not sure it's something necessarily that means quite as much as we would like it to. On the other hand, in my perfect world, whatever decision you make in a more glandular way that doesn't come off as directly related to those craven business/access concerns. Now, here's where it gets complicated, and this is where, for me, it actually gets a little bit scary. Couple of outlets, let me see if I can, this is the NPR media correspondent, reported earlier today that in the wake of the news regarding the Post, more than 200,000 subscribers have canceled their digital subscriptions to the Post after the revelation that owner Jeff Bezos blocked an endorsement of VP Harris. That's about 8% of Washington Post subscriber base, which is, as he points out, a staggering sum. That is a staggering number. 200,000. Now, let's remember something. We've all been there, I think, where I'm out. This story annoyed me. I'm canceling. And then 2 weeks later, I'm back. I get that initial adrenaline rush, and I go, okay, long term, I got to do what I got to do.
I've done it with The Athletic probably 7 times. They've infuriated
Not
me
enough.
on things.
Yeah, for sure. Well, probably because mainly you're infuriated because you're like triple paying for the subscription.
Well, I canceled 2 subscriptions and I still have one somehow. I don't get how that happened. But anyway.
So here's, look, it's a free country. If you want to cancel your subscription, I will defend your right to do it. But there's a disconnect here about the meaning of it all. Because, and this was pointed out, interestingly enough, by Woodward and Bernstein. Now, you could say, well, they're too corporate at this point. They got to take the position that they're going to take. They're almost management at this point, so they have to sort of defend the decision. And I don't defend the decision if literally Bezos blocked it. I'd say that's doing it. I have no problem with newspapers backing away from endorsements, but not this way, because it does come off as the person in charge saying, get out of here. I don't want to go down this road anymore. I don't know if there's business implications to it or the Bezos thinks there is. But if you're being honest, especially with the people who have canceled their subscriptions, here's the disconnect that cannot be ignored, okay? The Bezos publication, whatever you think of the Washington Post at this point, and this was part of Woodward and Bernstein's point, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, have devoted all kinds of investigative journalism into trying to expose a number of the truths regarding, and I know the righties won't believe their truths, regarding Donald J. Trump, right? So when people start talking about, well, this is ominous, what does this say? Well, the ominous part for me would be if that reporting stops. Because, in all honesty, day to day, the most important journalism is being done in the news pages. I think that has a chance, if any of it at this point influences anybody, and I'm no longer convinced it does. I'm really not at this point. I've come to a point where I don't think there's anybody going to be convinced about anything as they dig their heels in. The real ominousness conspiracy would be we find out from reporters within that proud institution, they're muzzling us on stories. We're backing away on a number of legitimate stories, and we've done that, and we have pulled our punches the last 6 months. You can't leave that out. If you want to do the conspiracy theory and the boogeyman and this is the end of the world, be careful, because, in fact, the Post has been all over an endless array of legitimate Trump stories. And again, you want to feel good about being one of the, what did I say, 200,000 that had canceled subscriptions? Remember something here. In effect, you could say, as good as you might feel about taking that subscription away, what is the message that you are sending to the editorial operation, which has done all of those stories? So you at least, I think, they're two separate issues, but they work together, and you can't discuss one, I would say, without the other. And so then you're back to, well, who am I hurting here? What exactly is going to be gained by this? And is it possible actually going to be discouraging even the daily journalism that the Post has done? Because you cannot be upset, I don't think, with the daily journalism that the Washington Post has done. Now, the LA Times, there's a million versions, like the daughter of the owner made it sound like it was it was Harris related for believing that Israel has a right to defend itself. The father has said that's not why the decision was made for the Times to not endorse candidates. I tend to think it's an overrated deal, but because we're in fraught times and everybody is overheated, everybody's looking for signs of, oh my God, what does this mean? Why are we giving in to this evil? Well, in all honesty, the Washington Post hasn't given in to the evil in the news pages. And again, you got 200,000 people who, in their anger about the endorsement decision, are they not acknowledging, or do they not care about the fact that, again, the daily journalism at least makes this decision and this situation for me a lot more complicated than we're getting them, we're out, I'm sick of this stuff, I'm sick of this pro-Trump stuff, or not standing up to Trump, when in fact, even if I don't like the decision to not endorse, if indeed it's for the wrong business reasons, they have, whatever business concerns there might be, they have been very tough on, they've had complete sections on Donald J. Trump throughout all of their reporting, not least of which is the latest, Bob Woodward book, which is not the Post, but is affiliated with the Post.
Well, and people discrediting Woodward and Bernstein, it's not like they need the Post at this point either. It's not like they're defending the Post decision, right, and mentioning who it's impacting.
That's true.
But it's not like, if they really had a huge problem with it, they could speak freely, I would imagine, right? I don't think they're necessarily bought and paid for 50 years into legendary Hall of Fame historic careers. But you're right, Bezos is going to sleep at night no matter what, right?
Yes.
Whatever you do with the Washington Post, Bezos is going to be fine. It's the reporters and the people on the ground that aren't Jeff Bezos that might theoretically feel the trickle down of something like this as it continues. Yeah. Bezos buying the paper was good for those people in general, just like Glenn Taylor buying the Star Tribune is good. We've seen newspapers,
which is why, because they stayed afloat.
Exactly right.
Now you can again argue, well, then what did that do to policy? Is it the same as it was before? But in fact, journalistically, most people will say that the Post has been very rigorous day to day when it comes to Trump stuff. So you can do it. I'll defend your right to do it. But if you're wagging your finger about the ominousness of this, you're being a little disingenuous if you're not at least considering the other half of this, which is really not half, it's the other 88% of this, which is the daily journalism that's being done. Now, is this a first step? If you're paranoid enough, you think that it is. And maybe it will be. I have absolutely no working idea. But I'm going to tell you this. If there are two choices here, and something's got to go, either toughness from your editorial board or toughness on your daily journalistic standard politically, I'll say take the endorsements and go. Because I'm not sure what kind of impact they have. More important issue is the daily journalism. And for these 200,000 to leave that out or be blind to that fact or not care about that fact tells me they're not really not facing up to the entire story. A couple other things before we finish with some toy department items. Let me make this the official stance of the Bumper to Bumper program as we get ever closer to Election Day, which you tell me is a week from tomorrow. Is that correct?
November 5.
A week from tomorrow. If you are famous, if you are infamous, if you are a rock and roll singer, if you are an artist, if you are an actor, if you are a comedian, if you are an athlete, I don't care that you're letting us know now that if Donald J. Trump wins, you're going to move to London or to Madrid or to Copenhagen or to Belarus. I don't give a rat's ass. You want to talk about performative politics at its most brazen and egotistical? This is it. I don't care. And by the way, we had a bunch of these threats 8 years ago, I feel like, 4 years ago. I mean, it's like, go. Here's the way to do it. Just go about your business. And if Trump is elected, very quietly, sell your estate or keep it and rent it out. I don't care.
Renterswarehouse.com.
Renterswarehouse.com, exactly it. And get on a plane, charter one, your own jet probably, or, first class where they have those new sleeper berths for the super rich, and go, take the flight to Rome. Honest, oh God, it's just, who's the latest one? Was it Schumer? I don't care.
Amy Schumer?
I believe it was. I believe that was, although maybe that's another satirical thing like so many others. Speaking of satire, Larry Mondello guy has checked in. I wish I could take credit for Jordan Addison saying his free 3 post was an homage to the kicker because that is hilarious. In fact, I had already been thinking of a bit providing preposterous explanations for other vague posts as well, which is not at all a bad idea. That might be very workable moving forward. I had something. What is Bezos from a business standpoint most closely associated with?
Amazon.
So have the same individuals who have made a production online, they've captured the screenshot of their online subscription, I'm canceling it. Have they canceled their Amazon Prime account?
Free shipping is a nice touch.
Yeah, I know.
It's helpful to have. And 2-day usually.
I mean, wouldn't that, if you're really going to go down that road, maybe some of them are true to their word and they're out of that business, or maybe they already were because they didn't like Bezos. I have absolutely no idea. I'm not a Jeff Bezos apologist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even really have a strong opinion on him, to be clear. I know that's dangerous in of itself. I'll probably get canceled for not having one, but I'm just curious. Amazon Prime, done? Or are you still, it's a lot of good perks?
Well, I'd say this, so I think you just gave me and a lot of husbands an idea. If our wives might not necessarily be pro-Trump, maybe they don't like this idea. Maybe this is a way we can get out of our Amazon. I meet the Amazon delivery guy daily. I have a closer relationship with him than I do most people in my life because so much stuff is coming from Amazon. This might be a good way to get us out of it.
Would you say on average, you get like 2 deliveries a day?
It's under 2, but not by much.
Yeah.
It just depends on the season.
The truck is it's expected on your block at your house.
We kind of guess where it's going.
Yeah.
My house or the neighbor 2 doors down.
Don't use KFAN to pick on Trump. How have I been picking on Trump here? What I'm saying is I'm picking on these assholic celebrities who think that we're supposed to be wowed and impressed. Like, I'm leaving. This happens again. I'm done. I've had enough.
Must be nice,
Go!
by the way. Yeah.
Honestly. Or just go on. You're not. It's not like there's a. Let's see. I'm one of the 9 undecided voters left. And I just read Amy Schumer is going to move to London if Trump wins. Got to keep her here. And it's a distinction. With these folks, it's a distinction without a difference anyway. They can go whenever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, right? It doesn't matter. They can live everywhere, right? Oh, my God. It's so showy. It's so pretentious. It's so performative. It makes me puke. I'm not sure how that's picking on Trump, but that's what Texture Guy picked up from all of that. Gargy's guy, Jeter's throwing out the first pitch tonight.
I saw that.
For Game 3. Any chance the Yankees lose, or the Swordsman throws one out of the strike zone? Now, that's from Clayton. Will Jeets throw from in front of the mound?
Oh, mound.
Or will he toe the rubber?
What kind of question is that?
Not a lot of even big-name athletes toe the rubber anymore. They all get afraid that they're going to look bad. You think Jeets can handle it?
I think Jeets can handle it. This is the guy that told President George W. Bush in 2001 that he better not bounce it because they'll boo.
Yeah.
Let's just say this. If Jeets doesn't toe the rubber, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I would.
I toed the rubber when I did it. I'm not Derek
Did you get
Jeter.
the ball to the plate?
It skipped off the plate.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
That was with the Saints?
No, that was with the Twins.
Oh, that's right. That was the Twins thing. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
TC Bear didn't do a good job of framing it, in my opinion. But
you threw.
Maybe I'll get another chance.
You didn't even get a half pelt for that explanation. That's for sure.
No half pelt.
Let's come back, wrap up the program, and big breaking Glenn Mason news to discuss when we return.
Show Wrap is brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
I'd recommend you podcast this program, including our 4 o'clock visit with John Athletic. Ben Leber joined later in the 4 o'clock hour, and good stuff from Vikings safety Cam Bynum. A little later than usual, 5:15 this afternoon. Tuesday is a Seifert, I hope, in studio day.
Yes, sir.
Along with Luigi. Tomorrow, here's your big breaking news. Not only is Mason Your Face back, he is back in studio, he tells us. And apparently we'll have an interesting car story to tell. He sent Garzi and I a very interesting 3-part video involving him getting in and driving a Rolls-Royce convertible in Naples, Florida.
Do you think he's just going garage to garage?
It wouldn't surprise me with him at all. You can see how loose and carefree he is right now.
What issues does Mace have?
He doesn't. I envy him. I have a lot of jealousy and envy right now. Also,
24 years ago today, he had a lot more problems than he has currently.
I have brought up that game before. I don't know if I'm going to do it again Wednesday. Speaking of Hail Marys and breakdowns, we gave up a Hail Mary pass to Northwestern 24 years ago on this day. Not as dramatic, one could say, as what the Bears did yesterday in Washington, because that's more recent. And you could say even a worse execution of a defense, but it wasn't helpful. And it was the last play of the game. And it gave Northwestern a victory where one of their receivers tipped it not by accident. It looked like the play was, I'm going to throw it to one guy. He's going to tip it to the other receiver. Is going to be further in the end zone. And he indeed made the catch. Mike Conley is going to join us on Wednesday as well as Mays. And it should be the return of Pat Kessler, we hope, in studio tonight. Vikings Rewind will be followed by Monday Night Football. The Steelers hosting the New York Giants. It's not what one would call a marquee matchup, but we've seen stranger things before. Some people still wonder whether Russell Wilson is playing not just because of injury, but because the Steelers are still shopping him.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
What if
No.
Darnold struggles against the Colts?
No.
Russell Wilson?
No. I'd like to keep Ben Leber on the broadcast, and I think he'd move to Canada. I think Leber would move to where all the celebrities are moving. Leber would just leave the country.
The 651 guy writes, you bash Trump daily. Don't pretend that you aren't. I am a Trump, 100% unapologetic Trump basher. Yes, I'd be foolish to deny that after all these years. The point was, I wasn't bashing him today.
Wait for us to do it.
At least wait for us to do it. But if you're in that world, if you've got that sort of derangement syndrome, then you're going to see it, whether it's there or not. And as we get closer to we'll have Kessler Wednesday, and we'll get into some things later in the week. There's a local story related to ballots that interests me that I don't really think has gotten enough attention at all, which we will discuss. And there's a couple national stories that will, as we get closer. The latest polls seem to indicate literally dead heat, right?
Flip a coin.
But with a little bit of momentum in most of them towards Trump. If you asked me today, and you haven't, if you asked me today to predict who is going to win a week from tomorrow, I think it's Donald J. Trump. I really do. Now, is that me trying to fend off, that feeling? Just sort of like deflect a little bit to protect, so I'm not surprised.
Like I do with Packer stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But my gut today tells me, I know some people wanted us to get into the New York rally.
Madison Square Garden.
Where the idiot comedian did the racist Puerto Rican joke, which you really can't make up. We will get to it tomorrow if we have time, or certainly, and maybe even with Kessler on Wednesday. There's a lot of fodder in that. No, I can tell you, short version is as embarrassing and hateful and as disgusting as the joke was. It didn't even play well there, actually, which is interesting enough. It was almost like, what are you doing? Is it stupid? Yeah. Did Trump say it? No. Did he try to distance himself from it? Yeah, but that's the double game that he plays. He loves every minute of it. I'm not quite ready to go to the MSNBC comparison that, hey, the Garden was where the Nazis had a rally back before World War II, as if this was another Nazi party rally. No, sorry. If I need that for my left-wing bona fides, I'm really not all that interested in doing it. I'm perfectly willing and capable, as we've done for years, to hammer rhetoric. But I'll tell you something else. For whatever this is worth as an amateur political mind, strategically, the more that the Jets yell Hitler and yell Nazis, the less I think it's likely that Harris is able to pull this thing off. I really do. Now, again, I might be kidding myself that at this point any one thing matters, like I said, because I'm not sure I don't know that any rules exist in this election compared to any that have come before. But strategically speaking, I don't think if you're using the H word every 15 seconds, I don't know that you're doing a particularly persuasive job of extolling the virtues of your own candidate. It all starts over again at 3 o'clock tomorrow. And as I said, we've got a very nice program in place then. Plenty of Vikings conversation. They're calling it Colts Week, even though there's not a great tradition, although greatest comeback ever a couple years ago.
That's true. It did happen against them.
It did happen against the Colts. So I'm sure we'll get into all of that with Seifert, what he thinks about the Jordan Addison story or non-story, and much more. We'll talk to you then.
Go get them, son. Show us what you can do.